Have you ever tried to set a boundary and wondered if it was actually the right thing to be doing? Or have you experienced setting a boundary, communicated it clearly, and had somebody respond to you by saying, "Stop telling me what to do," or "Stop giving me ultimatums"? And then maybe you found yourself with your head scrambled, not sure what was going on. In today's video, we are going to talk about the differences between boundaries versus ultimatums, when to use which one, and how to determine if this is something that is actually healthy. So, first and foremost, you can think of boundaries essentially as being these guides or limits that define where you end and somebody else begins in a relationship. And we set boundaries in order to maintain our well being, to protect our values or morals, or to define like where our personal domain is in relationship to people around us. And boundaries are supposed to be communicated in a way that's essentially allowing you to share your true self with other people. It's really easy to people please. It's really easy to wear your mask and be on your best behavior because that's something society essentially conditions us to do for so long. It can be a little more challenging, but also much more rewarding to share your truth about your boundaries. So, to let people know if you need time alone, to let people know what is acceptable for you in a relationship or what's not acceptable and not okay. And what that actually involves you doing is taking down your mask, being vulnerable, really sharing your truth with somebody else so they can see you and know you, and also as a byproduct of that, know how to treat you. So some different things you'd see in regards to boundaries are communicating, what kind of tone is important for you to be spoken to if you find that somebody's sharp with you with their tone all the time, or to tell somebody when you do need space or time to yourself in order to recharge. Or a boundary can be you just sharing about different communication preferences as a whole, with texting, with calling, these sorts of things. And what you're doing is you're also allowing the standards to be set in a relationship in a really healthy way because you're doing it transparently and openly. And boundaries are never meant to control or manipulate somebody. They are essentially meant to share yourself and your truth with somebody else, which will in turn allow you to know whether or not you're actually compatible with somebody. Because if you're sharing your truth, somebody else is sharing theirs, and then they don't mesh, well, then you have really important answers about compatibility. But if you share your truth and somebody shows up and respects those things, is mindful of those things, then they can better take you into consideration. And if they're comfortable doing those things that you request, you can see that there's true compatibility that is now allowed to be built on the foundation of communicating openly. Now, ultimatums, if you sort of sit this side by side to a boundary, ultimatums are generally more rigid than boundaries, and they essentially demand a specific action from another person. And they have to come with, pretty strong consequences if these demands are not met. So, you'll see in a very typical example, I know there's a television show called The Ultimatum. And in that show, it's basically that one person says, "We have to get engaged by the end of the show, or else I'm leaving the relationship." So you'll see, like, it's literally an ultimatum, like, we have to do this thing. It's this very kind of like forceful or rigid thing, or else the consequence is that I'm leaving forever. So, that's a really clear example of an ultimatum. And generally you're going to see an ultimatum when somebody's reached a breaking point in the relationship in regards to a specific action that they're looking for, or a specific action they're looking for somebody to stop doing, right? So in these kinds of cases, you're seeing this as like this almost like Hail Mary last ditch attempt to seek resolution to a serious problem in a relationship. And so an ultimatum will also usually involve more, concise language, more charged language. You'll see somebody saying something like, "If you don't stop doing X, Y, Z, I will ABC." And these are generally really intense things. "I will leave the relationship. I will not call you back. I will have to move out. I will have to, leave and go somewhere else." You'll see these like really intense sort of statements to back that. Now, ultimatums can be seen as coercion by people or manipulation because there's a tremendous amount of pressure in this really specific thing to basically comply or else, right? There's like this really intense consequence. And I think the part of determining whether something is healthy or unhealthy really boils down to when somebody is saying this, are these things they do all the time. So, for example, is somebody in a relationship with you and they're constantly threatening to leave the relationship? They're constantly saying, if you don't, call me back as soon as I call you, I'm not sticking around. If you don't skip going out on Friday with your friends, I'm leaving the relationship. Like, if you're hearing these things happen on a really regular basis, those are very unhealthy ultimatums. And I'm going to tell you in a second what an example of a healthy ultimatum is and when to use each one, and how to actually use a statement to determine if you're in sort of a healthy or unhealthy space. But before I do, if you do want to do a much deeper dive on boundaries, ultimatums, communication, we have a 14-day free trial just for a limited time going on for the month of November. And you can use the link down below to access it. It gives you access to all of the courses inside PDS, but you can focus in on the boundaries and communication courses if you'd like to in that period of time. And it'll also give you access to all the different webinars that we have and the daily social events, support groups that we have for smaller groups, literally every day, Monday through Saturday. There's like 2 or 3 things going on, plus all of our 60 plus courses. So I'll put that link down below. But going back to this concept of ultimatums versus boundaries, another big thing that you'll see here is with an ultimatum, if somebody's threatening with ultimatums, if they're literally saying, if you go out on Friday, I'm not staying with you. If you go away for the weekend with your friends, we're not together. If they're throwing these things around and this is something that's like a standard in the relationship, this is the norm. You hear these things once a week, once a month, even once a quarter. And if they're sort of like empty threats, like the person isn't necessarily intending on seriously leaving the relationship, when they say, if you go away with your friends, I won't be here when you get back. Like, if somebody's throwing those things around and they're not actually intending to act on the consequences that they're stating, these are absolutely manipulation tactics. And, they end up being really unhealthy. If somebody instead is actually at a point in their life where they realize, like, hey, if we don't start going to therapy, I can't stay in this relationship. And if that's where somebody's arrived at because of a lot of ups and downs and they're sharing honestly where they're at, then we would see an ultimatum that's like once in a relationship kind of dynamic, or maybe once every 5 years in a relationship sort of dynamic, where there has to be these really strong discussions had that are really to the point, because it's this last ditch effort to actually save the relationship. And in those cases, I can't say that an ultimatum is unhealthy, because that person is literally honoring where they stand and what they're needing in order to continue in a relationship to somebody else. And if they don't see those actions followed through upon, that's when they know they have to leave and go in a totally different direction. And they're sharing that openly. And so obviously we don't want to be in a point in our relationships where we have to get to the ultimatum standpoint. But at the same time, it's really valuable to be in a position where, somebody can actually communicate where they're standing at, if that's the last ditch attempt to really save something. And I think that how we avoid ever getting to an ultimatum space is we really foster healthy communication between two people in a relationship. We learn to share our needs and our actual boundaries early on. We learn to, cut the people pleasing behaviors and really open up and share who we are and vulnerably what we're looking for and what we're needing. It's also valuable to share vulnerably how somebody else's actions are affecting you. So that somebody can really have insight into what's affecting you, what your different wounds or triggers are, and they can learn to be more considerate about those things. And that's what healthy partners will do, right? Somebody who wants to do the work and show up and grow with you will do those things. So I hope this makes a lot of sense. I hope this explains some things about boundaries versus ultimatums and how to tell the difference. If you want to see more content around boundaries, ultimatums, like manipulative tactics in relationships, improving communication, like all this sort of frame of things, hit the like button or let me know in the comments down below other versions or variations of this video that you'd like to see. I'm really making an effort to come in, to check, to see what videos do the best and try to create more content with that have the most thumbs up. So it's sort of like our voting system. And then I'm also trying to read through the comments and make sure that I can create more content about those different topics. So let me know. Thank you for stopping by. Please consider subscribing if you're enjoying this channel. I would love to have you here. And I can't wait to see you for future videos.